I usually don't write out my speeches. I like to improvise. But we were asked to speak for only 6 minutes, so I wrote it out to make sure I'd stick to 6 minutes. I think Sabine spoke for 6 minutes, Megan spoke for 10, Luigi for 15, and Jim for 13. So I'll try to follow the trend and take maybe 7 or 8 minutes. Now, as you've heard, I've been working on the ITRs since 2004 for the past 8 years. I've been the secretary of all the groups that have prepared the conference. So I'm very familiar with the positions expressed by the various parties, with the proposals made, and in many cases with the reasons behind the proposals. So I cannot help by being totally astonished by the misinformation surrounding the WCIT. For example, the program for this event stated that the WCIT, and I quote, will consider proposals to expand intergovernmental powers, and I stress the word intergovernmental powers, over the Internet with respect to the Internet as well as wireless, IP-based, and next-generation networks. Now, I've read every single proposal, all 450 that are up for further discussion, and the other about 150 that were discarded somewhere along the way. Maybe I'm too close to the trees to see the forest, but I just don't see it. I'm sorry. And I've yet to find somebody who could really point to me where these things are found in the proposals. In particular, I'm sorry, there isn't anything about Internet governance. Our Secretary General keeps saying that. There's nothing in there about domain names. There's nothing in there about about IP addresses. So why do people keep coming back to ICANN? There's nothing in there about ICANN. You can read into it what you like. I'm from the ITU Secretariat. We don't have a mandate to interpret the proposals. Member states interpret the proposals. So maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just telling you what I've seen over the past 8 years. What I see that WCIT is about, it's about very powerful industrial groups and their revenue flows. Now, we live in a capitalist society, and I'm a convinced capitalist myself. And so it's normal that industrial groups are very concerned about what governments may or may not do that may affect their revenue streams. Telecommunications accounts for about 3% of GDP in developed countries, and considerably more in developing countries. It can go as high as 10 to 12%. It's big business, and it keeps growing. Let's run a little test here. Which is bigger, telecoms or Hollywood? Raise your hand if you think Hollywood is bigger. Nobody has the courage. Raise your hand if you think telecom is bigger. Okay, you're all right. Actually, video games is bigger than Hollywood. Telecoms is much, much bigger than those content businesses. Now, the specific issues that will come up at WCIT are the prices charged to consumers for mobile roaming. Did you know that? Did you know that there are very ambitious proposals to control mobile roaming prices that have been made? How many of you were aware of that? Okay? You all were. Fantastic. So you've all read the preparatory document, so I don't need to speak. You already know it has nothing to do with Internet governance. There are also proposals regarding the way that wholesale revenues are shared, and Luigi mentioned one of those proposals. Now, some take the view that no changes are required. Others take the view that changes should be considered. The point I want to stress is that there are no proposals calling for the ITU Secretariat to do price setting or anything like that. So coming back to my first remark, I don't see where there are proposals for a greater intergovernmental role. Nobody is saying the ITU Secretariat should set mobile roaming prices. The proposals say that the member states should set mobile roaming prices, for example, on the basis of costs. And as Luigi has said, there are other proposals saying that the member states should refrain from preventing operators from offering differentiated quality of service. So there are proposals that call on member states to do something, enforce transparency of wholesale prices, roaming prices, etc., or to impose certain cost bases in case competition is not working. All the proposals do say in case competition is not working. And there are proposals saying, well, don't impose net neutrality, which as we know is a regulatory measure which has been challenged in the United States, and let us offer differentiated quality of service. There are proposals that call on member states to cooperate to improve security and counter spam. I'll come back to those a little bit later. Now, an interesting proposal that's there that doesn't seem to have picked up much attention from the defenders of civil liberties is, and I quote, member states should ensure that intercept and monitoring of international telecommunications be subject to due process authorized in accordance with national law. So that is a pro-free speech proposal. It came from an African country. Guess who opposed it? Jim, what do you think? Who opposed it?
I assume the U.S. opposed it.
I won't go that far. But the democratic countries in general are not in favor of that proposal. I'm sure they have good reasons. There are new proposals, which you may not have seen yet, calling on member states to cooperate to improve accessibility. That is for the handicapped people, people who have hearing and vision problems. And there are proposals to use ICTs to improve energy efficiency. Let me just touch on a couple of misconceptions, and you have a lot more in your slides. I think we have 13 myths there that we are attempting to refute. The first one is that the ITU somehow is not involved in the internet because we only do telecommunications. The definition of telecommunications that is adopted by the ITU and all its member states is any transmission, emission, or reception of signs, signals, writing, images, and sounds or intelligence of any nature by wire, radio, optical, or other electromagnetic systems. So I thought I was missing something because I'm fairly old. So I asked my two daughters, who are 14 and 18 respectively, and have been using computers since they were about 4 years old, and of course use the internet a lot more than I do. Well, what do you think? Does that include the internet? And they looked at me and they said, Daddy, why are you asking such a stupid question? Which is not to say that you may choose to interpret it differently. You may, and some member states do. Another statement that comes up, and I thank Jim for having clarified that. That was very kind of you, Jim. He rebutted that for me. The ITU and the ITRs have nothing to do with the internet. That's actually found in a formal submission to the Wiki. Well, as a matter of fact, probably nobody here is old enough to remember except a few of us, but we won't reveal our ages. It's actually Article 9 of the ITRs that enable the internet. All of the internet traffic is billed under Article 9. Article 9 is the Special Arrangements Clause, which means that you do whatever you want. If you hadn't had Article 9, you wouldn't have had the internet. So in fact, it was 88 that enabled the internet. It was the first instrument in the privatization that we've all mentioned. Here in Europe, you're probably using DSL to access the internet. Well, guess what? All the DSL standards are ITU standards, and as you know, Jim, in the US, the cable modem standards are ITU standards. The fiber optic backbone standards are ITU standards. Anybody download a video lately? Well, you probably did, and you probably used MPEG. And who has standardized MPEG? ITU, together with ISO and IEC. A more subtle one, we're all using HTTPS for certain transactions, banking transactions, and so on. The S means secure, and it's based, for those who know a little bit about the technology, on public key encryption. What is the standard that defines public key encryption? Guess what? X509, an ITU-T standard from about 1988. Then some people say ITU does only telephony. Okay, this is a real memory test. Anybody heard of X25? Yeah, fantastic. There's some old-timers here. X25 was the world's first data network standard. I repeat, it was the world's first data network standard. It was developed in 1976, and it's still in use in some very limited applications. It was a packet switch network, but connection-oriented, and it was replaced, as we know, by TCP/IP. Now this one's tougher. In terms of number of users, what's the world's biggest messaging system? In terms of number of users, what's the world's biggest messaging system? Sorry? Electronic. Yeah, you're right. Electronic. Okay, come on, what are your kids doing all the time? SMS. So what does SMS run over? Anybody know? Signaling System 7. Bravo, who said that? You get the prize. And what is Signaling System 7? Of course, an ITU-T standard. And what is the world's biggest connectionless packet switch data network? It's also SS7, which is used to connect all those 16 phones. I've heard another one. ITU is top-down and closed. In fact, ITU work is entirely bottom-up based on inputs from its membership. We've had 124 separate proposals that have gone into the compilation document. All the ITU members have access to ITU documents, and members are free to make them available to their constituencies. In particular, member states do make the documents available to their citizens and organizations. In the US, you can write to the State Department, and you can get all the documents. And that's true in many European countries. They've announced that publicly. Terry Kramer made a public statement and gave the email in a press release saying, write to this email and you'll be on the State Department mailing list and you'll have access to all the documents. And you
without being able to publish them.
He didn't say that. And the ITU puts no restrictions on that. We have had several queries from people saying, from our members saying, what can we do? And we say, that's not our business. We give it to our members, and that we don't know what the members do. There's, and again, Jim, I thank you for not making that, but there's some people that say that ITU is an evil organization that prevents progress, and Jim has not done that. Well, look at your mobile phone keyboard, and look at your neighbor's mobile phone keyboard. They're the same. How come they're the same? Because ITU standardized it. And what about Wi-Fi? Who gave you that? The frequencies, not the standard. The standard's IEEE, but the frequencies come from ITU. And what about roaming? Roaming works because of numbers that are handed out by the ITU, and actually you can go back and brag to your kids, you met the guy who gives them out. I give out the international country codes, and I give out the numbers that go into SIM cards that enable roaming. So I'm the mini ICANN function, or the IANA function within the ITU. ITU has been an essential player in fostering the development of telecommunications since 1865. It was the 1988 ITRs that opened the way for today's telecommunication environment. And the ITU membership is confident that the 2012 ITRs will pave the way for tomorrow's telecommunication environment by encouraging continued investment and innovation. Please do not mistake differences of opinion regarding the best way to do this with differences of opinion regarding the goal. As Jim said, the goals are the same. We need more access to more telecommunications, including the internet, especially in developing countries, so as to improve quality of life. And the conference in Dubai should set the framework to make this happen. And I would just plead with you to let the developing countries defend their own interests. They form a majority of the states in the ITU. There's no way that the treaty that will come out will not reflect the interests of the developing countries. I work a lot with them because of the work that I do in ITU with numbering and accounting. And I can assure you that people from developing countries who come to ITU are very well prepared. They know the issues very well, and they can speak for themselves. I just want to touch on a couple of issues that have been raised by an open letter from CDT. And I don't mean to pick on you, Jim, but as I said, I had to prepare this in advance. So I took your 6th September open letter, which says, and I quote, "We do not believe that WCIT, is the appropriate forum to develop policies and standards that could affect the exercise of human rights of the Internet." Well, if you take the view that the Internet is a form of telecommunications, the topic of human rights on the Internet is exhaustively covered by Articles 33 and 34 of the Constitution, which many of you maybe have not seen. 33 recognizes the right of the public to correspond by telecommunications, and I think that would be something that you'd be looking for. But 34 recognizes the right of member states to cut off, in accordance with their national law, any private telecommunication which may appear dangerous to the security of the state or contrary to its laws, to public order, or to decency. And there are lots of examples of that. For example, in the US, gambling sites are not allowed. In Europe, certain types of hate speech sites are not allowed. And in everywhere in the world, certain types of child pornography is not allowed, and violations of copyright are not allowed. The methods by which content is blocked differ. In the US and the Western European countries, you need to go to a court process. In other countries, they block it up front. But all countries are exercising, to some extent, the right under Article 34 of the Constitution to block content. Now, my key point is that in the ITU, we have a hierarchical system. The ITRs cannot conflict with the Constitution. Since the Constitution gives member states the right to block content basically as they see fit, provided they follow some internal process that is due process within the country, the ITRs can have no effect on that. If you think we're having too much blockage of the Internet, you need to take the issue to the Plenipotentiary Conference and ask for a change to Article 34, which, by the way, has never been challenged and is signed by all 192 member states. In your letter, you say, the ITU maintains a relatively closed, non-transparent decision-making process. The ITU is its membership. It's not me, it's not the Secretariat. It's 193 members and 550 plus sector members, 700, depending on how you count. All of those organizations have access to the ITU documents. There are 28,000 separate accounts. Most member states make the documents available to their citizens. There's no reason to seek leaked documents. You can get the official documents from your member state. It's correct that the ITU Secretariat does not normally make the documents publicly available, but that's not the same as saying that the ITU as an institution does not do so, because the paradigm in the ITU is that the member states are giving it to their citizens, if necessary in local language, because we only do 6 languages, so you may need to do it in local language. So the ITU as a whole, I would argue, has a certain transparency model, which may be old-fashioned and may need improving, but the institution per se is not closed, it's just that the Secretariat doesn't normally make documents public, but we have made the main document public. And I don't like these claims that you can only see what the proposals are by looking at the leaked documents, because you can go to the IT's website and you have the official document. And I don't know whether the leaked document is authentic or not. I didn't check it. CDT states, we feared that certain countries' proposals would pose grave threats to human rights on the internet. Leaked documents detailing proposals for WCIT have confirmed those fears. I'm not sure what specific proposals would pose grave threats to human rights. Do you mean, for example, the proposal that states that member states should cooperate to improve network security? That's actually the current APT proposal, which China has now aligned with, and they've withdrawn their previous one, at least for now. They may come back, but for now, that's the Asia-Pacific proposal. Europe had a similar proposal. I understand now they've revisited that. But, what are we talking about? Is that posing a grave threat that we should cooperate to improve cybersecurity or network security, or find the right words? Thank you for your time.